All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to look at slope of a line day 2. So we've already practiced the rise over run, and we just did a few problems together. We even saw it from a data table, which is connected from what we did in chapter 6. So what we're going to do with a slope of a line on day 2 is we're actually going to give you 2 points. So imagine that you had your graph and you had your 2 points already, and you just simply counted your rise over run. This scenario is when you only have the data, which is only the points, not the actual graph. So our slope formula is identified as follows. M is equal to, well, remember the y-axis, that's the up and down movement, which is the rise. So y2 subtract y1, that's the difference in the rise. And then x2 subtract x1, well, that's the run. You're going to see it slightly different in high school, but again, it still goes back to rise over run, which is the difference between the two numbers. So the two ordered pairs we're going to be given could be something like this. 1, 2. So imagine from your ordered pair, or from your origin, that would be right 1, up 2. And negative 3, negative 4, that would be left 3, down 4. But you don't have to actually graph it and then count the rise over run. We're going to go ahead and use our formula. Now this formula is going to be very helpful for us later on as well. So let's go ahead and label it. The way I like labeling it is by writing the first ordered pair as x1, y1, because that's the first ordered pair. Now don't split them up. They are currently dating 1 and 1. They have like matching shirts and everything, maybe even like charm bracelets. That's a little weird. X2, Y2 is also dating. Now, for whatever the reason, I've had students over the years who kind of mix them up. So they said like X1 and Y2 and then X2 and Y1. That doesn't make sense. Keep the little ones together, keep the little twos together. They are special. So now that I have this identification, I'm simply going to go ahead and write down my formula. Now, I'm going to ask you to practice writing it down each time, because the students who don't write it down each time are the ones who tend to forget it. So I'm going to go ahead and put an equal sign, fraction line. I'm going to do some basic substitution. It's going to look like this. Let me go ahead and talk about it a little bit more step by step. So at the numerator, remember the y's, it says y2. So my y2 is the negative 4. So at the top of the fraction line, I will write negative 4 and then a subtraction sign. Then it says y1. y1 is 2. So for my numerator, I would write negative 4 subtract 2. I'll show that again in just a minute. For my denominator, x2, well, x2 is negative 3, because again, I've already identified it. So at my denominator, I would write negative 3 subtract, and then x1 is a 1, because I identified it. So it'll look like this. Negative 4 subtract 2 over negative 3 subtract 1. Now we've got some 7th grade skills. Negative 4 subtract 2, you could do adding the opposite if you like. That really gives us a negative 6. And then my denominator, a negative 3 subtract 1, you can do adding the opposite. That gives us negative 4. So negative 6 over negative 4 reduces to positive 3 over 2. So that means my slope is 3 over 2. So that means it would be rise 3, run 2. Rise 3, run 2. I keep repeating that because we're going to be using that next week. Rise over run. So again, it's identification, write down the formula, substitution, and simplify. So it's an 8th grade problem, but it's using 7th grade skills. All right, let's try just a few more. Negative 5, 2. So again, if it was a graph from my origin, I'd go left 5, down 2. 7, negative 6. That would be from the origin, right 7, down 6. So maybe you got that visualization. If not, that's perfectly fine, as long as you remember to label it with x1, y1, and x2, y2. So identification, step 1. Step 2, write down your formula. Step 3, substitution. So put an equal sign, fraction line. So for my numerator, it says y2 minus y1. y2 we identified as negative 6. So you would write negative 6, subtract, and y1, the number 2. So you would write negative 6, subtract 2. And then my denominator, x2. Well, x2 is 7. Subtraction sign from the formula. Always go to the formula. Then x1 is negative 5. So this is where some students make mistakes. Look at my denominator. It says 7 subtract negative 5. Too many students would simply write 7 subtract 5. but according to the formula, it's a subtraction sign, and according to x1, it's a -5. So I got to be careful there. All right, at the numerator, I could do adding the opposite, which would be -6 plus -2, which gives me -8. Denominator, please do adding the opposite. So it's really 7 plus 5. So -8 over 12 reduces to -2 over 3. And simplifying, reducing your fraction, that should be a given statement. You should know how to do that right away. Again, you've been doing that for years. Reduce it. Simplify. Don't ask if you have to do that. You know the answer. Please reduce. Again, rise over run. So this would be down to right 3. Down to right 3. Keep that in mind for next week. M, remember, refers to slope. -2 over 3. So that's a downhill line. All right. 1, 6. So if you want to visualize the graph, from the origin, that'd be right 1, up 6. 3, -2. That'd be right 3, down 2. I'm going to get a little drink of my cold brew coffee with protein. So, identification. Formula. Substitution. So remember, it says y2 minus y1. So that's going to be a y2 is -2. Subtract. Y1 is 6. So the numerator is -2, subtract 6. Oh, this is a nice, easy one. X2 is 3. Subtract. X1 is 1. 3 subtract 1. So my numerator could do adding the opposite. -2 plus -6, well, that gives me -8. 3 subtract 1 is a 2. -8 divided by 2, -4. My slope is -4. Now here's information that's helpful for next week. Let me see if I can get my pen ready. When we graph next week, we would actually say M is equal to -4 is my rise. What is my run? So for today, we're -4. That's what we want. But next week, when we actually do the graphing, -4 over 1. So the run would be a 1. All right, 2 more. Ooh, what do you notice about this one? This is a nice special one. Now, don't say it's special because there's 2 -6s. That's not special. What's special is the y's are both -6. So you got to declare that. You got to make that statement. The y's are both -6. So in other words, if x was -6 and a y was -6, that's not special. It's when the y's or the x's are the same. So I already have my identification, my formula, and then substitution. So for my y's, they're the same. So the numerator would be -6 subtract -6. Now remember, it's always subtraction from this formula here. Let's see. One more time. Numerator is -6, subtract -6. Now my denominator, x2, that's 2, subtract 0. Well, 2 subtract 0 is just 2. But the numerator, adding the opposite, doesn't that really be -6 plus 6? And isn't -6 plus 6 0? And if you have a 0 cookies for 2 people, 0 cookies. So my slope is 0. Now, again, it's the difference between 0 and undefined. That's where students get confused. 0 and undefined. This one was 0 because the numerator, 0, is over the line. This last one, so again, that is a scenario of a special equation that we've seen already graphing. The last one, we're going to notice that the x's are the same. So that's why it's special. X is -5, x is -5, special there. So when we do our identification, we are confirming the x's are the same. So that means it's going to be a special answer. Formula, substitution. So my numerator, I'm going to write it as 2 subtract 1 because y2 is 2. Subtraction sign, y1 is 1. So the numerator, 2 subtract 1. The denominator, -5 subtract, always subtract, and then x1 is negative 5. So my numerator, 2 subtract 1, is just a basic 1, but my denominator, adding the opposite, negative 5 plus 5 gives me 0, and when 0 is under the line, it is underfined, which is really called undefined, which means it just doesn't work. And if you remember, this actually gives us a vertical line. The previous one was a horizontal line. This is a vertical line. Because the lines, the linear equations, we can either have a positive slope, uphill, negative slope, downhill, horizontal line, or vertical line. All right, let's see samples of the special equations from our vertical lines. All right, that is it. You now have enough information to complete your assignment. And again, next week we're going to be doing even more graphing. All right, go ahead and be awesome.